Welcome to Fans Without Borders. I'm Brent.
And I'm Ray.
Ray, how have you been doing over this last week?
Hellish.
I'm sorry to hear that. Not what I was expecting.
Hellish.
What's going on?
Well, let's see. About 3 or 4 days ago, my computer decided, hey, not going to boot up today. I was like, what do you mean you're not going to boot up today? No, I'm not going to do it. I'm just, you try as you might. I'm not going to do it. It's like, this was like what, Wednesday or Thursday, right? So like the entire, and this is like during work, right? I'm technically working, right? Because I've got all that here and then like off to the side here, and then I'm like trying to figure this out. And it was an all-day process. And, you know, recovery mode, safe mode wouldn't even work. Couldn't even get it into safe mode. Recovery mode would work, so I'm like, okay, I can at least get it into recovery mode. So what do? Well, wipe the whole hard drive.
Oh, no.
And reinstall
everything.
Mac OS. Everything that's left, yes. There's still some odds and ends, but yeah, it's. I'm basically starting from scratch.
That is
so.
That is never fun when you're forced into it.
No, not when it's when it's not an active choice. It is not fun at all. So that's been my week. At least the back end of it. It was you go into a week and you have these plans and you have these ideas, and then it's just like technology throws you a curve. So that's what my week's been like. That's why everything has been kind of topsy-turvy for me. How are you doing? Hopefully you've had a better week.
Yeah, from the sound of it, I have. You know, not too much has changed in my world over the last week, so I'm just kind of a business as usual. My wife and I have started a new TV show. I'm not going to reveal what it is just because I don't want to get spoiled on it because we're a few years late on this one, and I'd rather not. I can tell you later, but I'm enjoying it. I will tell you, last week I told you guys, I said on the show, I think it was last week, that I was 2 episodes into The Boys. I was wrong. I was 3 episodes into The Boys. I had time this week, and I went and I fired up episode 3, and I'm like, well, I've totally watched this before. So I scrubbed through a little bit. I'm like, yeah, I saw this episode. I was 1 episode farther than I thought, so I watched another one. And then the other night when I thought my wife and I were going to be watching this other show, she just totally crashed, went to bed early. Okay, whatever. So I watched a couple more. So I'm now at a point where I have 2 episodes left of The Boys. Still, please, no spoilers, but I have 2 episodes left. So I'm getting through it faster, and I'm happy to say, overall, I am enjoying it more than I did in season 1. It's still filler for me, but it is more entertaining. I think it's just overall, across the board, better done. There's some stuff in there that I'm like, well, that's just there for shock value's sake, but that's all right. So I'm not going to say anything else because I don't know where you're at, but I've got 2 episodes left. Now, I thought I was 2 episodes in. Now I've got 2 episodes left.
I can tell you, based on what you just said, that you are well ahead of me.
I think that's hilarious.
There was some other stuff work related that was going on before my computer decided to take a crap on me, and since my computer decided to crap out on me, it's really been just that for the last couple of days. It's thrown everything off. So amazingly, I have still maintained my bubble, thankfully. Although I've taken to mute some things. And, you know, that's not a bad thing to you know, the subject of muting things, which, by the way, I kind of wonder if there's any way that you can give me, like, the subtlest of hints as to what that other show is that you're watching.
I will be happy to tell you later.
Well, can you at least tell me if it's a show that you know whether or not I've watched?
I have no idea. I've never heard you talk about it. It's a show that originates from Canada, which means everybody probably now knows what I'm talking about. So don't spoil me. Don't spoil me on it.
Wait, but
I'm looking at you, Travis. Don't spoil me on your Canadian television.
Is it a funny show?
Yeah, it is.
Well, but okay, I'm not going to.
I don't want spoilers.
No, but is it that kind of a show?
Maybe.
Okay. I think I know exactly what show you're talking about. I think I know exactly.
I think
what show you're
everybody
talking
does
about.
now, but I'm still not going to say it just on the off chance, just because I don't want. It's not a show we would ever cover on here. I just don't want spoilers, is all.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But no, as far as I've gotten into a brief conversation with people about spoilers lately because I don't know if haven't been on Twitter nearly as much as I normally am in the last week or so. But when I have gotten on Twitter, all of these Batman set pics, like they're just all over the place, and I'm just like, okay, can we slow down?
I just breezed by them. I didn't look closely. I didn't look in depth. People, all these rumors now, like things people that I'm like, I don't want to look at any of it.
There's a lot, and it's reopened kind of the spoiler debate because people are like, well, I don't really consider those spoilers. They're not really telling us anything. Well, yes, they are. They're showing you what a thing looks like. There were at least a few where it's like, I don't think I wanted to know that. I don't think I wanted to know that at all. And people are just willy-nilly posting them on Twitter, and it's like, and the problem is it's not with a hashtag or anything, so how do you mute that? Well, you're going to have to mute the person in order to get rid of that. And unfortunately, I feel like I might have to do that because too many people are just brazenly posting these set photos. And it's like, I don't want to see all of these. I know that it sucks we've got to wait until March 2022 to see this movie. Maybe. But if Warner Brothers, and I've gone back and forth with respect to, whether or not, because I've said on this show many times that I have believed in the past that certain leaks that happen are, I do believe in the controlled leak. I do think that has happened. I don't think that's what this is.
No.
I don't think that's what this is at all. I think this is, you caught us with our pants down because we're filming in the middle of the pandemic, and you're throwing a bunch of stuff out there we don't necessarily want seen. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it, but it's tricky. So yeah, the spoiler bubble is even more treacherous now than it has been in the past.
I saw a set photo from Batwoman the other day that I thought, well, that looks cool, but I would have preferred not to have seen it from a set photo. So I don't need to go into any more details than that. And if you haven't seen it, then good. I'm not going to tell you unless you want me to. I'll tell you off air. But
I have not seen it, and I don't know if I want to because that's another thing.
Wait.
You bring up a great point. That's another great point is, like seeing something in a set photo is not going to be how it's, it's not color corrected properly. It's not framed right. It's not how it's meant to be conveyed to you, by Warner Brothers or whoever it is, by the studio. So why would you want to see it in it? It's almost like, you remember how a couple years ago the Shazam leaks when we first saw the costume.
Yes.
And I remember the first week that those images came out, there was a huge uproar over his costume. They were like, I can't believe how cheap and crappy this. Michael Wilkinson should be costume designer on all of the DCEU films. This is outrageous. It's insane. And then you look at the official image, and all, like, you look at it in the movie, and it's like, oh no, this costume looks just as badass as Superman and any of the others. I'm sure somebody disagrees with that, but all the texture. They were talking about the texture, like, it's not there. Yes, it is. You were just looking at it in a set photo. This is why you should look at set photos. So, I'm with you. I understand. But at any rate,
we should mention the rest of the network we've got going on here.
That's not a bad idea.
So, of course, we are members of Squadcast Media. We've got Tim and Scott doing DC Film Squadcast, Chris and Jordan at DC Comics Squadcast. Chris is also doing the Horror Comics Podcast. Ray, you've got DC TV Squadcast, and I'm doing Marvel Squadcast with Brock, whom we've talked about things for future recordings. We're probably gonna look at WandaVision pretty closely when that actually drops. I don't know if it'll be every single individual episode, but it'll definitely be more frequent than what we've been right now. But that is where we are at. Where are you at with the next DC TV episode?
Well, now a little bit more delayed as a result of
your computer, sure,
technical difficulties, but still in the works. The show is not vanished. The show is still there.
Good.
It's just everything's in a weird place at the moment, but we'll get it going. We'll get it going soon enough.
Good.
And of course, we also should remember to mention Patreon and thank all of our supporters on Patreon. We really do appreciate your support. Hope that you were enjoying all of the Patreon content. The most recent Squadcast Movies episode that dropped is Sin City. which just dropped like days ago, this past week, I believe. Tim posted that. Batman Returns is still in the hopper. That has been recorded. It is in the can. That'll be the next one that'll be popping up as well. I am not 100% certain, because of my issues, whether or not I'm going to be on the next episode of Fans Without Borders Plus talking about The Boys.
Yep.
But I think it's going to happen. I do believe it is going to happen. I'm not certain when, and I'm not certain if I will be a part of it. We will see. But one way or another, I know Scott will, because I know he's finished.
He's done with it, yeah.
He's definitely done with it. Tim might be a part of it as well. I'm not 100% on that, but I think at some point, yes, I do believe that discussion will happen. Good. And you know what? There's another, and at some point after I get everything reinstalled and straight here, there's a movie actually that we're going to bring up for a bit today that now I think might enter the conversation as far as potentially being on that show. At least I hope it does, because it's one that I definitely want to watch now that I know it's actually going to release this year, which is great news. We'll get to that later. But there's that, plus tons of other content, Scott Shots, Comics Corner, tons of other stuff on Patreon from the guys. And I don't know, on occasion we do Patreon stuff.
It's been a while, but yeah, we need to do some more soon, probably.
Yeah, probably. But at any rate, all of that is there and more. So thank you very much, patrons, for your support. And as always, we cannot thank you enough for your support to Squadcast Media.
Okay, first up this week, Michael B. Jordan was in the news for comic book movies, but not related to the MCU like people might expect. He is going to be producing the Static Shock movie that was announced at DC Fandom. He said, quote, "I'm proud to be a part of building a new universe centered around black superheroes. Our community deserves that." End quote. This is awesome. This is great news. He did such a great job as Killmonger, but just the way that narrative went, he really can't come back, at least not in that role. I'm glad to see his involvement here in future comic book movies. Again, it's just as a producer right now, but we really think he's not going to show up on screen. You have an actor of that caliber who's involved in a project, I think we'll see him on screen.
Okay, first off, outstanding news. Probably the best comic book news we got of the week, I would say. And you had to wonder if this was going, how this was going to play out, because we knew some time ago that Michael B. Jordan had signed it, was going to be working with Warner Media. We knew that. He had recently, he did that Fahrenheit 451 adaptation for HBO about a year or so ago. And we knew he had signed a deal, so the question is, okay, now that we know you have a stake in comic book movies, having played one of the best villains in the MCU, subjectively speaking, if you're going to be working with Warner Brothers, are you going to do something with DC Comics? You kind of figured, yeah, he's going to. Now the answer is yes. And I agree with you. He's got to be in it. Come on. You got to put him in there. Somebody was suggesting Icon.
Yes, which I think is hilarious because Icon is basically the Milestones universe Superman equivalent, right? Like, he is their Superman. And there was, I don't remember the status of it, but talk that either he was in talks or rumors or something. People have definitely called for him to be Superman in a DC movie before. So personally, I love this idea. If he came on as Icon, sign me up. That sounds awesome. But you just want to see him in front of the cameras as well. Yes, by all means, do all that great work behind the scenes, but let's see you on camera as well.
Quite honestly, that's the that's the other part of this that for me, selfishly, is good news, because if he's attached to this, then that means the Superman stuff is over, hopefully. And not that I had anything against him playing Superman, I'm in the Cavill camp.
Right, you didn't want to lose Henry Cavill, yeah.
Exactly.
If Henry Cavill came out and said, "I'm done," well, that'd be a different discussion, but...
Precisely, yes. And I mean, if the time comes and he ever wants to do, like, Valzad?
Mm-hmm, yep.
Yeah, if he wants to do that, then cool. But, like,
yes.
But this, I feel like, is also kind of more in his wheelhouse, because of, the resurgence of Milestone, the stuff that we heard at DC Fandom. And that's another thing I do want to bring up, because a lot of people did point out how Variety and the other articles that were reporting this weren't mentioning the creators. They weren't mentioning Dwayne McDuffie or Dennis Cowan and or the Milestone people in this. And I do want to make certain. I mean, we know them. Of course, we're going to bring them up here, but important to note that they're part of this, and this is the Milestone label getting its due. We heard at Fandom from them in that special secret panel that this movie was in the works. Now we know Michael B. Jordan is going to be behind it as far as producing it, which is great. It's exciting. I guess the biggest question now is how this fits into the multiverse. Will this be a DCEU proper film, or will it be a standalone? Time will tell. As far as they can go either way with it. They haven't necessarily officially introduced multiverse to us yet as a general, to the general audience, that is, because I would assume that the Flash film will be the first official introduction to the general audience of DC's multiverse, cinematically speaking. So all the ground rules for that haven't been set yet. However, totally makes sense that this could be one or the other with respect to that, because this movie is going to come out, I mean, based on scheduling and whatnot, this is no earlier than 2023 if they were to get in production on this within the next couple of years. So we're looking down the road here. So yeah, that's the big, and I had somebody ask me the question like, okay, is this connected or is this not connected? And not general audience, but some fans are starting to ask that question with some of these new projects that we hear about. Will they be connected or will they be standalone?
Well, comics precedent gives history for both of those. They started off as their own standalone thing, and in fact, to my knowledge, the first crossover between DC and Marvel was the Worlds Collide event in the 90s. It's certainly the first time I saw any of them. That was my introduction when I saw Static Shock and Rocket pop up. Static and Rocket pop up in an an issue of Superboy, and then of course Superman and Icon meet in that event as well. So maybe someday we'll see Superman and Icon meet here. Who knows? But in the current continuity, they're technically part of the main DC universe. You get glimpses of their characters and like the background of Young Justice. Either way, I'm open to it. Whatever. I was excited by this news to see Michael B. Jordan back with comic books.
You say crossover, and of course my dreamy fan brain just thinks of Jason Momoa, Gal Gadot, Henry Cavill, Ezra Miller, Michael B. Jordan, Zachary Levi.
And I just went to
like
Jordan and Cavill together, but yes, absolutely the rest of those two. I mean,
and throw Black Adam in there, throw The Rock in there. For good. Come on, I mean, it just the idea of all of them on screen at the same time. Oh dear.
I mean, it's possible. Yes. It's possible. It is. It's on the table. And just to reiterate, we're not saying Michael B. Jordan is Icon. Just people have been speculating. People are now fan casting it. And it's just an idea that I think I can speak for us both that we would be on board with.
Absolutely. And I completely agree with you. I would be stunned if they did not find a way to put him in front of the camera for this project. So here's hoping.
Okay, Future State from DC. This is a two-month line-wide event that DC is going to be starting in January and running through February. And basically, as I understand it, it's one of those events where they just put everything on pause for a couple months. So whatever issue comes out in December of your favorite book, if it's on a cliffhanger, which it probably will be, just understand that you're going to have to wait a few months for that pickup there. I had not read a ton on that. I've read some this morning, but I didn't read a ton at the time. I looked at some of the images. I'm not a huge fan of the put everything on pause, but it is what it is. I mean, it's certainly far from the first time that DC has done this or Marvel has done this kind of thing. The thing that really caught my eye was a picture of the Justice League had a Green Lantern in it. And I'm always like, well, which Green Lantern did they go with? And they went with Joe from Far Sector. That is absolutely fantastic. That comic continues to amaze me, by the way. I've really enjoyed the last couple of issues. But to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, if you've heard anything, this is the first time we've seen any reference to Joe outside of her book.
First time I've seen it, and quite honestly, that was what caught my attention. You tagged me in that on Twitter, and I was like, "Oh yes," because that was a question. We didn't know, with all of the changes that have been going on with DC Comics lately, we knew that N.K. Jemisin was going to finish her run on, like I think it's 12 issues for Far Sector, but we didn't know what the future of the character was going to be after that. This now shows us she's got a future, and I'm very happy about that. More of her, especially, and you had brought this up, the idea of her interacting with the rest of the Justice League, bringing her into the group, and seeing how she, and I think the premise, when you read like some of the premise here, like as far as you get to the Green Lantern part of it, you just think about the whole deal about batteries and about dead batteries and remembering how her battery works.
Very
right?
differently, very differently.
Right. So it's like, okay, they're seeing potential in this. They're seeing the same potential in it that we're seeing reading the book, and it's exciting. It's very exciting. It's tough, Brent, because there is still a lot of the Green Lantern run that I need to read with respect. So I feel like it's almost unfair for me to call Joe my favorite Green Lantern when I haven't read enough of John Stewart or Hal, or don't I need to read more of the others and make it more, and not that I haven't read any of them, I clearly have, but don't I need to read more of their runs before I can fairly say that Joe is my favorite?
No, I would disagree with that, because, I mean, it was pretty on into my reading of Kyle that I was like, no, he is my favorite Green Lantern. This doesn't mean I hate all other Green Lanterns. All Green Lanterns stink except for this one. No, if this is the character that you are the most interested in, that's fine. I don't see a problem with that at all. And I would encourage you to read several Green Lantern. Like, there's several different Green Lantern stories I would encourage you to read. But I don't think there's a problem with saying, like, I like this character speaks to me. Great. I mean, a great thing about Green Lantern is there's so many of them. And yeah, at their extreme basic, they all look roughly the same and have the same powers. But the way they use those powers, the way their characters interact with each other and interact with the DC at large is all very different. And what we're getting from Joe is something we've never seen before. Yeah, we've seen story arcs where Green Lanterns were off-world for extended periods of time, doing space stuff, but not like this, it's totally different than any Green Lantern story I've ever read. So no, if I would have predicted John Stewart just because of your Cosmic Odyssey appreciation, because obviously he's an important character there. But if you like Joe more than John Stewart, or if you like Joe more than Guy or Kyle, okay, great. You picked a great character from a string of great characters. I mean, it doesn't matter which Green Lantern is your favorite, as long as you enjoy it,
Yeah, well, that's very good point. And, John Stewart, yes, because Cosmic Odyssey, but also, not to dance around it, the representation angle, of course.
Sure,
that's important for me.
Absolutely.
And, I think that's definitely part of it with Joe. That's absolutely part of it with Joe for no question about it. But I am curious to see, and quite honestly, it was also the same, with how much I enjoyed what I read of the Green Lanterns run in Rebirth, between Simon and Jessica,
Yep.
as much as I've enjoyed those two characters, those two brown characters, so it's cool. And I'm just excited to see more of Joe in this universe. I'm excited to see more of her story flesh out. I'm excited to see how she bounces off these other characters. That's cool. That honestly, they could have announced anything else with this future state. As soon as I saw her, I was like, I'm reading it. It's happening. It's going to happen.
So looking at a couple of the other books they're doing, they're splitting it up into 3 lines: Batman, Superman, and Justice League. Wonder Woman is part of the Superman line, apparently. And according to what I'm reading, it says basically in the future, Batman is dead, and it's the rest of the Bat family picking up the pieces. Superman is off-world and is, I think I read, fighting in Warworld. And then John, his son, is the acting Superman and who's living in Metropolis. And then, of course, Justice League has, like, looking at just the picture, like, all kinds of different characters in the mantles of the costume. This Flash, I don't know if you saw you did, because it's in the same cover as Green Lantern. I don't know who that Flash is. I don't know what that, like, I'm not current on the Flash book, so I have no idea what's going on there. All I know is it's a really cool looking Flash costume, and I don't intend to follow this as it actually comes out. I don't intend to be reading this in January, but 6 months later, because presumably that's about when it'll start hitting DC Universe, that is my plan for when I will start checking this out.
That's a good point. I forgot about that. The whole, do I read immediately, or do I wait for DC Universe Infinite? That's a good point. For like money saving and just, yeah, interesting. But yeah, I'm not current either, but from what you have described, it does sound like that. I did see, not a ton, but I did see a few people that were like, no, I'll pass. Because it's too much of a shock for them. Not everybody accepts completely different interpretations. Or like you said, putting it on hold, putting everything else on hold for something new and kind of shocking with respect to where they're taking things. I will admit, I looked at the image of Superman, and the first thing I saw was, oh, no red trunks. All right.
yeah, I saw that too. That image, that Superman is John, apparently, from what I've been reading. But that's where you just say, you know what? If you want to skip this, totally fine. They're going back. They said it's reading a little more. It looks like some of it's going to trail into March as well. But basically, the bulk of it is those 2 months, and the main line books are going back to their stories after these 2 months. So I mean, if you're going to skip it, well, you just save some money for 2 months, I guess. But I mean, to me, like, this is a no-brainer. These books are going to be expensive. They're going to cost more. There's going to be a lot of them. And if nothing else, the artwork that's been associated with is very interesting looking. So if that's the case, that makes you want to try at least the first couple issues out. Well, for me, that's going to be DC Universe. That's how I'm going to do it.
And we're going to have multiple ways of doing it, whether they're physical, and I know some of them are oversized or giant issues. Mm-hmm. I know, so there'll be the print option, obviously, for those who can, and there'll be the digital option for the rest of us, Comixology. However, there's a bunch of different ways to absorb this, and it'll be interesting to read. It is one, I don't know when we'll get to talk about it on this show, but we will definitely both read it at some point. Yep. After it comes out, for sure.
That is the plan. Okay, Ray, I had texted you last night and I said, hey, I've got this and this. What's some other stuff you wanted to talk about this week? And you mentioned a whole slew of movie industry news that had come out this week. Some of it I had seen headlines on. None of it I had read super in depth prior to last night. What do you got for movie industry news?
Well, a decent amount, to be honest with you, and because we continue to be in this kind of limbo for a minute with respect to the future of the industry itself, particularly this whole kind of battle that has been orchestrated by the fans and everybody about theatrical versus digital. Yeah. And some things have happened in the discussion. The first big thing that I saw that happened that was really like eye-opening was, and this happened during Prime Day, like the first day of Prime Day, which that was one of the headlines, is that Amazon got their own Prime Day deal. Amazon bought the Coming to America sequel from Paramount for $125 million. Now, for anybody that forgot that movie was being made, oh yeah. And not only did. A lot of people did, and I think part of the reason for that, Brent, is because if people probably don't recall this, but that movie was being shot at the same time Bad Boys for Life was. There was a video that came out last year that Will Smith shared. It was him and Martin Lawrence meeting up with Eddie Murphy on set.
Oh, really?
Because they were like in the same studio, and it was like a big to do with that. So yeah, that's how long ago they were filming. Like that movie, I'm pretty sure has been in post since before the pandemic. The Coming to America sequel, and I think originally it was going to have a theatrical release later this year, and obviously with all the limbo that has happened, all the release date changes that we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, Paramount clearly felt that they weren't in a position where they would be able to drop this thing this year. So in a move that, quite honestly, we've been looking to see more of, they cut their losses. And it's a similar situation to what we saw when Sony sold Greyhound to Apple, or when Warner Brothers, I believe, or whoever it was, sold Enola Holmes to Netflix. This is another situation where Amazon is getting a theatrically produced film, and it will be coming out in December on Amazon Prime. And I will be watching it the 16th, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. It's just before Christmas. And so the Coming to America sequel will be a digital release. It will be on Amazon Prime Video. And I don't know how you feel about the first film, Brent, but that is one of the greatest class. If I top 5 Eddie Murphy movie, if not his best, I mean, subjectively speaking, it's outstanding. I love that movie for so many reasons. Cast alone is insane, and a decent amount of them are coming back, like James Earl Jones, who played his father, King Joffrey Joffer. I believe, what is her name? Is it Sherry Headley? I believe that's her name. Lisa, his wife, she's coming back. Vanessa Bell, who was supposed to be his wife, is coming back. And of course, Wesley Snipes is playing a new character in the movie. I'm pretty sure Arsenio Hall is in the movie. He's got to be in the movie. I'm pretty sure. I'm scrambling here a bit for the cast, but no, I've been excited for this movie to come out. This is one of those sequels. It's like, wow, it's been so long. Really want to see it. And so now, yeah, it's going to be on Amazon Prime. It's going to be digital instead of theatrical.
I mean, this is great news because you're actually going to get to see the movie. You're not going to have to wait for 6 more months to maybe just watch it get delayed again another 6 months, you know? You're going to actually get to see the movie. And in roughly 2 months from now, you will have seen the movie probably. That's great. I think that's great news. You also sent me some stuff on Warner Brothers and Universal not buying movie theaters, which I'm curious as to what you thought about that, but it's important to note that they can now. They can. For a long time, for decades, there was this law in the books that they couldn't. And the short version is a movie studio could not own a theater due to, call it either monopoly tendencies or conflict of interest or whatever you want to call it. That kind of vertical integration was not possible. That law is now expired. It was temporary. So technically, there is nothing that would stop Warner Brothers, legally speaking, from going out and buying AMC theaters if they wanted to. If they wanted to fork over the cash, they could absolutely do that. When they were asked about it, that Donna Langley of Universal said that they have no plans to do it currently. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of a non-answer, but it's really just like, we're not going to talk about this type of answer, at least to me. What did you think about this, though?
Well, I thought that she commented, it looked like they said Sarnoff from Warner Brothers. It looked like she commented as well. Because the headline was, we're not planning to buy them, but we're rooting for them.
Right.
And I think what's interesting is that, you're talking about, Universal's already, they kind of started the controversy with Trolls earlier this year with respect to their
the movie, not the internet people, just to be clear.
True. Yes. The movie Trolls World Tour. No, Universal did not get on Twitter and start stoking the fire. No, they did not do that. But no, there was the whole imbroglio they had with AMC earlier this year when the pandemic started with respect to that movie was going to be theatrically released, and they decided, no, we're going to put it on VOD. So it doesn't surprise me that they would say that. The Warner Brothers thing, it's interesting. They've kind of done this about face. And notice, it wasn't like Toby Emmerich or any of the Warner Brothers studios. It was Ann Sarnoff. I think one of the things that we've seen lately is that Ann Sarnoff is certainly in the Warner Media camp with Jason Kilar more than she is in the Warner Brothers camp with everybody that's still under the old traditional studio system. And, like we've mentioned before, in the last couple of weeks, these studios have been indicating that they're reshifting their focus. They're recommitting their efforts and their assets to streaming. This would fall in line with that, where, because right now there's this concern about, can the theaters be bailed out? And you've got all these directors and these creatives that have been lobbying for Congress to bail the theaters out, similar to how the banks were bailed out, similar to how other industries have been given assistance over the last couple of years, and because they're concerned that theaters are going to go away. And the studios are basically saying, well, we're not interested in that because I think, pursuant to what you and I have both agreed upon many times, the studios have the content. The theaters need them more than they need the theaters.
Absolutely.
So in their minds, a lot of them they're getting to that point. They're not totally there. They're getting to that point where they're starting to cut their losses and move forward in terms of the future of distribution for all of their projects. And I think this is just their way of saying, well, we're rooting for theaters and we hope they can find their way out of it, but we still have our own other plans and we're going to do what we can in our best interest down the road.
Yeah, I wouldn't be at all surprised to find out that some individual or very, very small chains got bought by a studio. I don't expect some big, massive buyout of AMC to actually happen. I don't expect something. Well, Today, I don't expect something with Cinemark, but we know that Cinemark just up and closed for the next few months, both here and in the UK. Maybe I could see something with them, but like AMC is still open, they're still operating, so I don't really see it there. And AMC is trying different stuff. I still don't think they're trying enough as far as like COVID awareness. Let's say I still think that they should be taking some more precautions there than what I saw when I went to the theater, but they are trying other things to bring you in, and this could fall into that line because you also told me, you sent me this article that they're now making it easier to basically book an entire theater, an entire room to rent for a movie. It said for like up to 20 people, either starts at $100 for the movie up to $350 based on what movie it is. Because I immediately thought, like, I was like, man, if you get one for $100, I bet I could come up with enough people to make that like a reasonable cost. Even $350 is like, I don't know. I'd feel like that'd be a little tougher. Did you look at this at all to see like what they were charging for the current movies they offer?
No, I didn't dig into it. Like, I kind of just saw like some of the surface level stuff because more than a few people sent this to me, and you know, you get a wide variety of reactions to this because there really has been like a divide. Like you've got people that, you know, especially when you bring up Wonder Woman 1984, which that's kind of the poster child for this for a lot of our fandom, and it's just like I'm seeing more and more people saying just throw it on HBO Max. I just want to see it. Just throw it on HBO Max. But then you also have people, you know, I've been unfollowed in the last week or so by people that, you know, but by listeners and people that mutuals that just don't want to see it ever show up on streaming and are really beholden to the idea of theaters and, you know, they feel like a piece of themselves are dying if theaters go away. And they see news like this and they act like it's, you know, they hear taps playing, right? Like, oh, here's or Chopin's Funeral March, like here comes the death knell. And it's like, guys, listen, it's not that severe. If anything, the way that I look at this is a bridge into the idea that I have suggested, is that theaters will not completely vanish. They will become a niche property. Like I said before, going to the theater or going to the opera, it will become an event. They were already starting to do that. When they knocked out all the 300-seat theaters and made them 150 to 180-seat reclining theaters with heated seats and concierge, you know, like people bringing your food to you and like all the other digital, everything that Imagine does up here with the EMAX and like what AMC started doing, like they were already starting to make theater going an event as opposed to just a regular thing that we do all the time. That was already happening. This is now accelerating that process. And I look at this as the next stage of that. You know, and the idea is it's not just the next stage of it. They're also trying to make it safer, or at least mentally for people, give them peace of mind with respect to going to see a movie. If you can buy a theater out and control who comes in, right? So it's not just random Tom, Dick, and Harry that is just sitting in, you know, however many seats next to you. Tom might have a cold and that's why he's coughing, but you don't know that. You know what I mean? You're freaking out. You don't want that ruining your movie experience. But if you know who Tom is, if Tom's your buddy, and you know good and damn well he doesn't have it because he better have gotten himself tested and he better not be lying to you, that is supposed to give you that peace of mind. And I think, you know, the higher prices, yes, I see that, but at some point, I think that's also AMC trying to hedge their bet. You know, basically saying, okay, if we're gonna do this, so this is gonna be, we still have to make it a little bit worth our while. And I could see groups doing this. I absolutely could see.
It's not that expensive. Like if you do the math on it, I looked at just what they were currently offering, and a few movies I'd never even heard of were $150. Tenet and New Mutants were $150, and the rest of the movies were all $99. I didn't see anything above that $149 price point. But like I'm like, okay, so $150 for New Mutants. If I knew 10 people who were interested in seeing that movie, everybody pulled their money together, it's not that expensive. And I'm like, the more I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I'm telling you, if they do this with Black Widow, I'm going to consider this. I'm absolutely going to consider this. Even, you know, that's going to be the $349 price point, right? Well, it's like between some friends and family, I could come up with enough people to make it where it would probably be a more expensive than usual ticket, but not extreme. And I would view that there as I'm paying for a little bit of safety and peace of mind and comfort. And I'm like, tickets already cost about $15. Just about $15. Some places they're a little more, some places they're a little less. Of course, there's always deals and coupons and things like A-list, but just straight, I'm going to walk in, buy the ticket at the advertised price, about $15. This isn't really that bad of a price when you look at it that way. So yeah, if I wanted to get Black Widow and it was just going to be like the usual group I would go to a Marvel movie with, Brock, my wife, my dad, and my brother-in-law. Like, that's the group that we usually go, or some subset of that group, depending on people's schedules. Okay, sure, that would be a little more expensive. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm still like, I'll consider it. I won't lie. I mean, if Black Widow makes it to movies in May, because never know there, and we're gonna talk about something else related to that in a minute. But
yeah,
it doesn't feel. It would be outrageous maybe for 2, 3, 4 times, but it doesn't feel outrageous if you can get 10 people to go see it.
No, and it again, it reemphasizes the idea of making the whole thing an event. This isn't something that you would do 20, 30 times a year.
No.
It is something that you would do 3 or 4 times a year, depending on the movie, depending on the film. Like, say you're somebody that, you're a comic book movie fan and you're a Christopher Nolan fan. And you really are one of those people that feels like the first time I see this movie, it must be in IMAX. It must be on the large screen. And if you've got enough people in your circle that can make it worth your while, yeah, you'll do. Yes. And then I really do feel like this is something we're going to see more of as the industry transitions into the idea of theatrical movies being more of an event than just a regular happenstance. And yes, I would do this. Here, let's say that, this really is the beginning of that, and we push forward into this, and we'll talk about what Dan Loeb thinks about your Black Widow idea here in a second. But let's say we get to a point where March 4th, 2022, this is my option for seeing the Batman. You know what I'd do? Here's the fun part. I'd be like, hey guys, why don't we pick a neutral theater that we can all just either drive or fly to, and we all just rent it out ourselves?
Make it a little event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that could be a thing. You know what? I'm throwing that idea out here in the universe right now. In 2022, if this is where theater going is at, which it very well could be, we could totally rent out a theater for the Squadcast.
And you've always
at some point
been able to rent them out at places. Like, I've never looked into it before, but now they're pushing it. I don't know if these prices are roughly the same or not, but I think something like that, like a Squadcast meetup to go see the Batman, I mean, that'd be a lot of fun. Let's be honest, that would be a lot of fun.
It would, and I really want to hit home this point as well as we get into this next one, is the idea of trying to draw a line between either you're for theatrical or you're for digital. No, it's not battle lines, guys. It's not how this works, okay? Just because we are in favor of wanting to see the movie through any means,
right, there it is.
Doesn't mean that we are against theatrical. We are not, and I've seen that one of the people that unfollowed me absolutely basically threw that in my face, like, why do you want to kill theaters? Why do you want to see theaters die? I don't want to see theaters die. I just want to see the movie.
You want to see movie studios survive so you can keep getting movies.
Right. And it's not, I'm not against theaters. I don't just all of a sudden want to see theaters go by the wayside. And as I've said before, I don't think they're going to go by the wayside. I just think they're going to turn into these event modules, essentially. But we should have multiple options to see movies, and we should just be taking digital more seriously than we are. It should be more of a serious proponent, especially in a situation like we're in now, and especially given how the audience has been demanding it. But theatrical, yes, of course. Why wouldn't I want to see the Batman on a bigger screen? Why wouldn't I? Of course, if the option is safely there, and it ought to be safe, on March 4th, 2022. It just ought to be. If it isn't, oh dear Lord, we have
bigger problems.
So many other problems if that is the case. But as long as the option is safely there to see it, of course, yes, I want to see all of that on the big screen. There's no question about it. So, no, we are not against theaters. We just want to see these movies, right? That's all it is. And to that end, we can go ahead and get into Mr. Dan Loeb, a Disney shareholder, who, he caught my attention. I saw this, one of the regurgitators popped up with this, comicbook.com, but it was sourced. The reason, one of the things that regurgitators do is they'll read one of these articles, and, we've talked before, Brent, about how we might have to pay more attention to what these shareholders calls and these other investors meetings.
December 10th is Disney's 6-1 for the record, which might be relevant here.
It may be very relevant and we're having to start to pay attention more, because what's happening is these are getting reported by like Variety and Forbes and Deadline and Hollywood Reporter, and the headline will be all encompassing about everything they talked about. But then there'll be like a paragraph or a line or two where it's like, ooh, that's interesting that they said that. And then that's what the regurgitators find. And that's what happened here. Comicbook.com found a quote that Dan Loeb said in a bigger article in Variety, and they said, hey, that's interesting. And I actually agree with them on this. A Disney shareholder that thinks Black Widow should be released on Disney+. He argued in a letter to Disney CEO Bob Chapek on Wednesday that Disney must double the amount of money that it spends on producing and acquiring content for Disney+, ESPN+, and Hulu if it wants to catch up to Netflix, one of its biggest rivals. And all the numbers, you keep looking at these projections, and it's like Netflix is number one by a large margin, but everybody keeps putting Disney+ at number 2. I still don't get that. I believe the numbers. I still wonder what it is about that library that is bringing in new people, because they just don't have a lot of new original content. There is some coming. Mandalorian season 2 is coming in a couple of weeks. That's very exciting. And we know WandaVision's on deck, and we know Falcon and Winter Soldier and the MCU stuff is coming. Yes, but there just hasn't been a whole lot new currently. So I do wonder where those numbers are coming from. I do believe that they're there, but at any rate, Loeb is saying, quote, "The good news about Disney versus Netflix is this is not Yahoo versus Google, where Google had an insurmountable gain and a network effect where Yahoo was never going to catch up." In August, Disney Plus hit 60 million subscribers. Their 5-year goal was 60 to 90 million from November 2019. As of July of this year, Netflix has 193 million. So yes, Disney Plus has still got a ways to go. But basically what Loeb is saying is he thinks that Disney Plus needs to get a jump. And they have an opportunity with a film like Black Widow to really get a jump and really push Disney Plus's subscribers. I'm sure he feels that Black Widow on Disney Plus would push them well past 100 million and really get them even closer to Disney Plus. And quite honestly, I think he's got a point. It's not a slam dunk, and it's not definitive. And, I know that we're still waiting to see what the MCU, what the post-Infinity Saga reaction to the MCU is. We're still waiting for that. We don't know. We're still waiting for that. And unfortunately, we're never going to totally know fully what it is because so many other factors, mostly the pandemic, have affected that. Everyone is in a completely different place in terms of what that reaction is going to be now. But I'm with him. This is an opportunity. If Disney's really recommitting their assets and their resources to focus more on streaming, this is an opportunity to get a big jump. If you put this thing on Disney Plus, and I know the theater people are just cringing when I say that, if you put this on Disney Plus, the possibilities for your subscriber base increase could be staggering, potentially, depending on how much of the general audience that is still an MCU fan wants to see that film.
So, start off with, I agree with him. They should put Black Widow on Disney Plus. They should not wait. They should get that revenue now. I have long thought that a movie is not a service seller, but there's always been this caveat with that because I've always felt that way because people are just going to sign up and get the week or the 2-week free trial and then watch their movie, watch it a couple times, and then leave, right? Well, Disney Plus does not offer a free trial. So that changes the calculus there. Because they don't offer one, yes, people will sign up for Black Widow to get to watch it. They will sign up. They'll put in their $7 to Disney Plus for Black Widow. Absolutely. Will they stick around? Will it just be a 1 month bump? That would be the big question. I bet a lot of them would, because it is really cheap. And the thing that I disagree with Dan Loeb here is this characterization that somehow they have to be. I don't like the characterization that Disney Plus is behind Netflix. They are by pure subscriber count. They absolutely are. But it's not an either or proposition. I would be willing to bet the vast majority of people who are interested in both have them both. Because when it comes down to it, to have both services, it's about $20 a month. And for the amount of entertainment you get between both of those services, most people will say that is a good value and they will sign up for it. And so to me, Netflix is table stakes. Everybody's got Netflix, right? You talk to somebody, you pick a random person off the street, you just assume they have Netflix. Disney Plus is not there, but Disney Plus, I think, is the next one. I don't think they're competing for that top spot necessarily. I feel like they're just competing to trying to get to that table stakes level. Black Widow could certainly help with that, but especially at their current pricing, Disney Plus is so cheap. It's just additive. It's not. I'm sure somebody has said, I'm going to drop Netflix because of Disney Plus. But I bet those people are few and far between. I bet most people are like, I'm going to get Disney Plus in addition to Netflix. So I don't necessarily agree with his characterization of how fast they should be moving. And again, their 5-year plan was 60 to 90 million. They hit it in less than a year. They hit the low end of that range. And we're going to find out probably December 10th, updated numbers, and that will have been 13 months into a 5-year goal. And they could be north of 70 million at that point, maybe even closer to 80. I don't agree with his characterization that they are ridiculously behind. I do agree this is an opportunity to get a turbo boost, if you will. So ultimately, his final bottom line assessment, put Black Widow on there, I agree with. It's just some of the way he got to that assessment is maybe where I disagree on.
So I agree with you with respect to the idea of most people that are interested in both have both. I'm one of them. I'm interested in both. I have both. I utilize both. And I do agree on that level. But I 100% believe they're trying to chase Netflix. I absolutely believe that. And you got to remember, he's a shareholder. He's looking at this from a dollars and cents perspective.
Sure.
And so he sees numbers. That's what he does. He crunches numbers, and that's what these shareholders are doing. This started even before the service was launched. The phrase Netflix killer, which we know, mathematically speaking, no, you're not going to kill Netflix.
I mean, they have to triple in size just to match them.
Precisely. But that gives you a window into the mindset of the shareholders and these people behind the scenes that Netflix is their target. When I talk about these services chasing Netflix, in many ways, that is exactly what I mean with these shareholders. They look at Netflix as lapping them in this race. They want to catch up and pass them. That is how Loeb is looking at this. So now whether or not that's feasible, whether or not that's logical, totally different discussion. But I 100% believe that's what he means. He absolutely means
probably.
He's being literal when he says that. But I agree they don't need to do that. When you talk about table stakes, it's the same as how, Kleenex is to tissue as Netflix is to streaming.
Mm-hmm.
People use it synonymously, and that's what happens when you give them a 5-year head start and they make a name for themselves. They make it synonymous. That's just where you're at. That doesn't mean you can't succeed. And all of these other apps are succeeding in their own way with respect to the streaming age. There's room for all of you at the table. But on some level, they're all still trying to chase the big dog. And whether they get there or not, what I hope is that they all, and I say this for all of it, whether it's Disney or Amazon or HBO Max, whoever it is, I hope that they all realize that in trying to chase Netflix, you are still succeeding. You're still achieving your own success. You're not, just because you're not at 193 million doesn't mean you're a failure. No, Disney Plus is not a failure. Disney Plus is not a failure. And I would say that none of these are a failure as of yet. The closest that we got, I would say, to one of these new services, the closest, and yet it's still going.
It is still going.
They haven't gone bankrupt, and there's still new content going up there. You know, they're still attracting some new audience, however they're doing it. But that's the closest we've come. None of these other services, all these services appear to be in it for the long haul, and they're all achieving a measure of success in different ways, and I just hope that they all understand that. I hope that Loeb realizes that even if Black Widow doesn't get released on Disney Plus, it doesn't mean your service is failing. It just means that you're carving your own niche, and that's what all these services are doing. They're carving their own niche. You might be chasing Netflix. You don't need to get to where Netflix is to be successful.
I think I could sum it up this way for me. Loeb he wants to be in the race for number 1, whereas I'm looking at it as a comfortable race for number 2, knowing that most people have room in their household budgets for probably 2 or 3 of these. So I'm like, Disney Plus, it's kind of like, you know, you're being, what's the old joke about when I'm being chased by a lion? I don't have to outrun the lion, I just have to outrun you. It's like, that's kind of how I feel. It's like, Disney Plus doesn't have to outrun Netflix. They just have to be able to outrun Apple TV Plus or HBO Max or whatever from their perspective. And of course, they're all trying to do the same thing. Right now, I feel like it's a race for number 2. With Apple TV Plus, it's going to be very interesting what happens with them, because if you sign on originally, like if you bought the iPhone a year ago or any of the others that gave you the free first year, for most of those people, they've extended those free trials of a year another 3 months into February. So it'll be interesting when people have to actually start paying for Apple TV Plus. But even that's going to be harder, because most people who have it are going to do it through Apple's new bundle they're coming out with in another month. Which
is what I want to do. I want to switch to that bundle when it comes out.
We're going to do it too.
But I great point. People have room for 2 or 3 apps. Mm-hmm. You don't need to be number 1. If you are, it's Netflix and da-da-da-da. Right. If you're one of the ands, you're good. You know what I mean? If it's Netflix and Disney Plus and Hulu, or Netflix and Disney Plus and HBO Max, whatever it is, if you're one of the ands, you're good.
And now that I think about it, it's people have room to actively straight up pay for 2 or 3 of them. Like for me, I don't have to pay extra for HBO Max. So in my house, it's not even in the game. I get it included in my internet. So it doesn't matter what it costs. Like I have it. It's not going anywhere. Like what am I going to do? Subscribe cancel a free service? I mean, no, I'm not going to do that. So, and for a lot of people through deals with Verizon with their phones or whatever, they got Disney Plus that way, or the Apple TV Plus. So it's Netflix but even those ands have some asterisks to them, because you don't have to always pay for them. Or you have Amazon Prime, the Invincible show coming out. I'm going to be all over it. I'm not going to have to pay extra for that because I have Prime for shipping stuff. So
exactly.
I'm with them though. They're still in the race. They're still in the game to make money. And you know what? I think they could make a lot of money if they put Black Widow, and it would certainly make me personally happy. So in this case, I wish it was on there yesterday so I could be watching it right now.
I'm right there with you.
All right. Well, with that, we'd love to hear any feedback you guys might have. You can email us at borderlessfans@gmail.com.
And we're also on Twitter. I'm at the Flightcast.
I'm at Brentech Prime. The show is at borderlessfans.
And as always, you can find us and the other shows in our network at squadcastmedia.com.
See you later.
Take care, guys. Stay safe out there.